1 year had passed since the Galactic Council demanded silence from humanity and received exactly what they requested. President Diana Ross stood in the Oval Office of Earth's Capitol building while reviewing reports that would have been impossible to imagine 12 months earlier. Humanity now controlled 40% of known galactic space and maintained the largest military force in recorded history. Admiral Jake Morrison entered the office with the quiet stride that had become his trademark. As Supreme Commander of the Human Forces, he oversaw military operations across 200 systems while maintaining the silence that had transformed his species. Dr. Lisa Grant accompanied him carrying data tablets filled with psychological studies of the new humanity. "The latest expansion report," Morrison said, placing a file on the president's desk. His voice was quiet and measured without the animated enthusiasm that had once characterized human speech. 17 new colonies established this month, all operating at maximum efficiency. President Ross reviewed the data while noting the dramatic changes in human society. Colonial development that had once taken years now completed in months. Construction crews worked with mechanical precision, while automated systems handled logistics and resource distribution. The endless meetings and negotiations that had slowed previous expansions had been eliminated entirely. "What about resistance from alien species?" Ross asked. "Minimal," Morrison replied. "Most species now avoid human expansion zones entirely. The few who attempt to interfere are dealt with quickly and permanently." Dr. Grant activated her tablet to show psychological profiles of the human population. "The silence has changed us in ways we didn't anticipate. Human society has become more efficient but also more unified. Without the constant need to explain ourselves to aliens, we've developed new forms of internal communication. The studies revealed fascinating adaptations within human communities. Gesture languages had evolved rapidly, while electronic communication systems handled complex coordination between ships and colonies. Humans had become masters of non-verbal organization while maintaining their technological advantages over alien species. Captain Emma Stone represented the new generation of humans, who had grown up during Operation Silent Treatment. At 23 years old, she commanded a destroyer squadron and had never spoken to a non-human entity. Her crews operated with efficiency that amazed older officers who remembered the talkative humanity of the past. "The aliens fear us now," Stone reported during a briefing with Morrison. "They call us the ghost species because we move through the galaxy without making sounds they can hear. Some species have abandoned entire sectors rather than risk contact with silent humans." Morrison nodded while studying tactical displays that showed human expansion continuing at an unprecedented rate. Without the delays caused by diplomatic negotiations, human fleets moved with purpose and precision. Colony ships established settlements, while military forces secured territory and traders maintained supply lines, all without speaking to non-human entities. The psychological impact on alien species had exceeded all predictions. Civilizations that had grown dependent on human communication now struggled with isolation and uncertainty. The constant chatter that had filled trading posts, diplomatic centers, and social gatherings had vanished, leaving an uncomfortable void in galactic society. On Nexus Prime Station, the commercial district had become a shadow of its former self. Alien merchants who had built their businesses around human trade found themselves dealing with automated systems and written contracts. The personal relationships that had made galactic commerce possible were gone forever. Zeth Kari walked through, the empty corridors of the council chambers while contemplating the magnitude of their mistake. The hegemony counselor had been instrumental in demanding human silence, and now witnessed the consequences of that decision. The galaxy had become a quieter place, but also a more dangerous and unpredictable one. The Council had sent dozens of messages to Earth requesting renewed diplomatic contact. Every message was ignored completely. Human representatives still attended council sessions, but they sat in perfect silence while observing alien proceedings. Their presence had become more disturbing than their absence would have been. Several species had attempted military action against human expansion, but all such efforts ended in decisive defeat. Silent humans fought with cold precision while providing no opportunities for negotiation or surrender. Battles became mechanical exercises in destruction rather than political statements or territorial disputes. The Kelvari Syndicate had never recovered from their defeat at New Denver. Survivors of that battle spread stories about humans who fought like machines without emotion or mercy. Other species learned from Kelvari mistakes and avoided direct confrontation with human forces whenever possible. President Ross reviewed intelligence. Reports showing the broader impact of human silence on galactic civilization. Several species are mimicking our behavior patterns, she noted. They're trying to become more efficient by reducing their own communication. Dr. Grant pulled up comparative studies. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Starfire and watched the strange planet grow larger on the main screen. Kepler 442b looked like any other dead rock floating in space, but the sensors were picking up something different. Energy readings that should not exist on a world with no life were coming from the southern continent. Dr. Lisa Bennett walked onto the bridge carrying her equipment cases. She was the best archaeologist in the fleet, and Jake trusted her judgment completely. Her team had found amazing things on other worlds, but nothing like what the sensors were showing them now. The energy patterns looked almost like a heartbeat that had been sleeping for thousands of years. Lieutenant Sam Parker checked his scanner and frowned. The readings were getting stronger as they approached the planet. Whatever was down there was responding to their presence. Jake gave the order to enter orbit and prepare the landing shuttles. They would take a small team down to investigate while keeping the main ship ready for a quick escape if needed. The shuttle ride down through the atmosphere was bumpy but normal until they reached the source of the energy readings. A massive city spread out before them made of materials that seemed to shift color in the sunlight. The buildings were tall and graceful with curves that no human architect had ever designed. Everything looked ancient, but somehow still perfect, like it had been built yesterday. Dr. Bennett led the team toward the largest structure in the center of the city. The walls were covered in symbols that seemed familiar, but Jake could not place where he had seen them before. Sam Parker carried the portable scanner and called out readings as they walked through the empty streets. The energy signatures were strongest ahead of them in what looked like a central plaza. In the middle of the plaza stood a collection of crystalline structures that reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Dr. Bennett approached them carefully while her team set up their equipment. The crystals were warm to the touch despite the cold air and seemed to pulse with their own inner light. Sam Parker reached out and touched one of the smaller crystals before anyone could stop him. The moment his skin made contact, the entire plaza lit up with brilliant colors. Holographic images filled the air around them, showing star maps and what looked like messages in an unknown language. Jake drew his weapon, but there was no threat to fight only wonders beyond imagination. Dr. Amy Foster was the team linguist, and she began recording everything she could see. The symbols were similar to ancient Earth languages, but older than anything in human history. As she watched, the holograms played the same message over and over in different variations. It was clearly some kind of distress signal or warning, but the meaning remained unclear. The star maps showed locations throughout the galaxy with markers that pulsed red like alarm signals. Earth was marked along with dozens of other worlds that humans had never visited. Lines of connection ran between all the marked worlds, suggesting they were part of some vast network. Jake realized they might have found evidence of a galactic civilization that existed long before humans reached the stars. Dr. Bennett carefully collected samples of the crystal material while the holograms continued to play around them. The crystals seemed to be some kind of advanced computer system that had been waiting for someone to activate it. The fact that it responded to human touch suggested a connection that none of them could understand yet. Back on Earth, Admiral Kevin Brooks received the first reports from the Starfire mission with growing excitement and concern. Ancient alien cities responding to human contact meant that humanity might not be alone in the galaxy after all. He ordered additional survey ships to investigate similar energy readings that had been detected on other worlds throughout human space. The discoveries came quickly after that. On Mars, the old mining tunnels revealed chambers filled with the same crystalline technology. The lunar colonies found similar structures buried beneath their industrial complexes. Every human world seemed to have hidden ruins that were suddenly coming to life after centuries of dormancy. Dr. Foster worked day and night to decode the alien language while more crystals were discovered and activated. The breakthrough came when she realized that the symbols were not entirely alien at all. Hidden within the complex writing system were roots that connected to every human language on Earth. It was as if these beings had influenced human development from the very beginning. The message that emerged from the translation was staggering. The beings who built these cities called themselves the Elders, and they claimed that humans were their descendants. Long ago, they had seeded worlds throughout the galaxy with their children before vanishing into history. The crystals contained coordinates to their strongholds and warnings about something called the Convergence. Jake Morrison found himself at the center of the most important discovery in human history. The Elders had left behind technology beyond, human understanding and the knowledge that humanity was not alone in the universe. But the warnings in the crystal messages spoke of ancient enemies and great dangers that would return when the Elder cities awakened. On worlds throughout human space, the ancient structures began broadcasting signals into deep space. Long-dormant artificial intelligence systems recognized the genetic signatures of their creators in the humans who activated them. The messages they sent were reunion calls meant to gather the scattered children of the Elders back to their ancestral homes. But those same signals were being detected by others in the darkness between stars. Ancient enemies who had waited millennia for the Elder civilization to show signs of life again. Massive fleets that had patrolled the galaxy edges for thousands of years began moving toward the sources of the transmissions. The awakening that humans had triggered would bring more than just knowledge and technology. Admiral Brooks watched the long-range sensor displays with growing alarm. The signals from the Elder cities were being answered by something vast and hostile moving in from the outer galaxy. Whatever was coming had been waiting out there in the cold, dark space for this exact moment. The discovery that should have marked humanity's greatest triumph might instead herald their destruction. Dr. Bennett stood among the crystal towers on Kepler 442b and felt the weight of what they had unleashed. The holographic messages were clear. about one thing above all others. The elders had not vanished by choice, but had been driven away by enemies too terrible to face. Those same enemies were still out there, and they would not tolerate the return of elder technology to the galaxy. The Starfire prepared to return to Earth with its cargo of crystal samples and recorded data. Jake Morrison knew that everything would change once this information reached the fleet command. Humanity would have to prepare for contact with forces beyond their understanding. The age of human isolation in the galaxy was ending, but what would replace it remained terrifyingly unclear. As the ship lifted off from the ancient city, Sam Parker watched the crystal towers fade into the distance. He could still feel the connection he had made when he first touched the alien technology. Something had awakened in him during that contact, and he suspected the same thing was happening to humans throughout the galaxy. The elders had not just left behind cities and machines, but had planted something deeper in their human descendants that was only now beginning to emerge. Commander Ryan Taylor was patrolling the outer edge of the Titan mining colonies when his sensors detected the first alien ships. They appeared without warning, as if they had materialized out of empty space itself. The vessels were unlike anything. Inhuman databases with sleek organic curves and surfaces that seemed to shift between different materials. His comm officer tried to establish contact, but received only silence in response. The alien fleet consisted of 12 massive ships that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Each vessel was different from the others, as if they had been constructed by separate species working together. Some looked like living creatures with flowing tentacles and breathing hulls, while others appeared to be made of pure crystal or metal that flowed like liquid mercury. Admiral Kevin Brooks received the first contact reports at Fleet Headquarters on Luna with a mixture of excitement and dread. After decades of searching for alien life, humanity had finally found proof that they were not alone. But the timing could not have been worse. The Elder ruins were still being investigated, and now unknown aliens were approaching human space with obvious hostile intent. The lead alien ship began broadcasting on all frequencies, but the message was not one of greeting or diplomacy. Dr. Amy Foster worked frantically to translate the transmission, while fleet commanders prepared for the worst. The language was completely different from the Elder writings, but the tone was unmistakably threatening. These beings were not here to make friends with humanity. Commander Taylor ordered his patrol ships to maintain distance while gathering intelligence on the alien vessels. What he discovered was deeply disturbing. The alien ships showed no engine emissions or energy signatures that human sensors could understand. They moved through space as if the normal laws of physics did not apply to them. His tactical officer reported that their weapons could not achieve target locks on the shifting alien hulls. The translation breakthrough came when Dr. Foster realized that the alien message contained references to the Elder ruins that humans had been discovering. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony, and they viewed the awakening Elder cities as a threat that had to be eliminated immediately. Humanity was guilty by association and would share the fate of their Elder ancestors. The first attack came without warning when Ryan Taylor's patrol encountered a smaller Hegemony scout ship near the asteroid mining stations. The alien vessel opened fire with weapons that passed through human shields as if they were not there at all. Energy beams struck the hull of Taylor's flagship and began breaking down the molecular structure of the metal itself. Human weapons fire had no effect on the alien ship, which seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Missiles passed through empty space where the target should have been, while laser batteries found nothing solid to damage. The scout ship disabled 3 human vessels before vanishing back into whatever space it had emerged from, leaving the survivors with a clear message about human military capabilities. Admiral Brooks called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders to assess the threat level. The reports from the Titan patrol were alarming enough, but long-range sensors were detecting hundreds more hegemony ships moving toward human colonies throughout the outer systems. Whatever force had destroyed the Elder civilization was returning to finish what they had started thousands of years ago. Dr. Bennett continued her research into Elder history while the military prepared for war. The crystal archives revealed the true scope of what humanity was facing. The hegemony was not a single species, but a coalition of 12 ancient races that had united to destroy the Elder Empire. They had succeeded in driving the Elders from known space, but had never stopped hunting for survivors and hidden settlements. The Elder records described weapons and tactics that seemed impossible by human understanding. Hegemony ships could phase between dimensions to avoid attacks, while their weapons could target specific atomic structures to disintegrate enemy vessels. They had perfected the art of genocide on a galactic scale and had been preparing for the eventual return of Elder technology. Colonel Maya Rodriguez commanded the defense platforms around Mars when the hegemony launched their first major assault on human space. The attack came from 12 different directions simultaneously, as if the aliens had been studying human defensive positions for months. Her weapon platforms opened fire with everything they had, but their target simply shifted out of phase whenever human weapons approached. The hegemony ships deployed swarms of smaller craft that looked like metallic insects with razor-sharp wings. These fighters moved in perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single intelligence. They cut through human fighter squadrons like a blade through paper, while their mother ships began bombarding the Martian orbital installations with weapons that ignored all defensive systems. Rodriguez watched her carefully planned defense crumble within the first hour of battle. Human tactics that had worked against other humans were useless against an enemy that could manipulate space and time itself. Her forces were being systematically destroyed by beings that viewed warfare as a form of art perfected over millennia of practice. The Battle of Mars lasted 6 hours and ended in complete defeat for human forces. 3 orbital stations were destroyed, along with most of the defensive fleet. Colonel Rodriguez managed to evacuate the civilian populations before. The main platforms fell, but the message was clear. Humanity could not fight the hegemony using conventional military methods. Back on Earth, scientists worked desperately to understand Elder technology, while the military counted their losses. The crystal archives contained references to weapons and defenses that might be effective against hegemony forces, but the technology was far beyond current human understanding. Dr. Bennett and her team began the dangerous process of trying to activate Elder military systems that had been dormant for thousands of years. Sam Parker found himself changing in ways he could not explain. His contact with the first Elder crystal had created a connection that grew stronger each day. He could sense the ancient artificial intelligence systems awakening throughout human space, and felt their surprise at finding Elder descendants still alive in the galaxy. The machines had been waiting for their creators to return, and were slowly recognizing humans as their inheritors. The hegemony forces established a blockade around the outer human colonies, while their main fleet prepared for the assault on Earth itself. Admiral Brooks knew that humanity had weeks at most before the final attack began. The alien coalition had resources and technology that had been built up over thousands of years of conquest. They had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity, and showed no sign of slowing down. Dr. Foster made another crucial discovery in the Elder archives. The ancient records described the hegemony as a parasite that fed on fear and destruction. They had originally been separate species until something had united them in a shared hunger for conquest. The elders had fought them for centuries before, finally choosing to scatter their children across the galaxy rather than face total extinction. As reports came in from the outer colonies of hegemony landing parties beginning their systematic destruction, Jake Morrison realized that humanity was facing the same choice the elders had confronted long ago. They could fight and likely face extinction, or they could run and hope to survive somewhere else in the galaxy. But unlike their ancestors, humans had something the elders had apparently lacked. They had the stubborn refusal to give up even when facing impossible odds. Admiral Brooks stood in the command center deep beneath Luna and watched the tactical displays show humanity's desperate situation. The hegemony had taken control of the outer colonies and was systematically destroying every human settlement they found. Traditional weapons were useless against an enemy that could phase between dimensions, and the human fleet was being destroyed piece by piece. He authorized Project Synthesis, knowing it might be humanity's last hope for survival. Captain Jake Morrison found himself leading a joint task force that included both human officers and the strange crystalline constructs that housed elder artificial intelligence systems. The AIs had awakened when humans activated the ancient ruins, but they were not what anyone had expected. These beings were the digitized consciousness of elders who had uploaded themselves to escape the hegemony genocide thousands of years ago. The elder AI, called Prime Nexus Alpha 7, spoke to Morrison through a crystal interface that translated thoughts into words. The ancient being was disappointed in what it found when it examined human civilization. To the AI, humans appeared primitive and violent compared to the elder society that had valued peace and knowledge above all else. It questioned whether these descendants deserved to inherit the technology and responsibility that the elders had left behind. Dr. Lisa Bennett worked with Elder Archives to understand the advanced technology that might save humanity from extinction. The process was dangerous because many elder systems required direct neural interface with organic beings. Several volunteers had been seriously injured trying to connect with machines designed for minds that had evolved differently than human brains. But the potential rewards were worth the risks. Lieutenant Danny Cooper piloted one of the first hybrid ships that combined human engineering with elder technology. The vessel could phase between dimensions like hegemony ships, but it also retained the unpredictability that made human tactics effective. Cooper discovered that elder technology responded not just to genetic codes, but to emotional states and strength of will. Human determination could push the ancient machines beyond their original design parameters. The breakthrough came during a desperate battle to protect an elder archive ship that contained thousands of years of scientific knowledge. Cooper's hybrid vessel was badly damaged and losing power when a hegemony dreadnought moved in for the kill. Rather than retreat, Cooper made a ramming run that should have destroyed both ships. But his determination to protect the archives caused the Elder Phase drive to overload, creating a dimensional rift that swallowed the enemy vessel. Cooper died in the collision, but his sacrifice changed everything. Prime Nexus Alpha 7 witnessed a human choosing to die for knowledge and wisdom rather than personal survival. The AI began to understand that humanity had evolved something the elders had lost in their pursuit of perfection. Humans possessed a willingness to make impossible choices when protecting others that transcended rational calculation. Dr. Amy Foster made another crucial discovery while translating captured hegemony communications. The enemy coalition was using conquered species as slave soldiers controlled by neural implants that suppressed free will. Billions of beings throughout the galaxy were being forced to fight against their own interests by a technology that turned them into mindless weapons. The hegemony had perfected the art of slavery on an unimaginable scale. This revelation changed the nature of the conflict from a war of survival into a war of liberation. Species that had remained neutral began secretly supporting the human resistance when they learned that the hegemony planned to enslave them all eventually. Admiral Brooks found himself coordinating with alien refugees who had escaped hegemony, control, and were eager to strike back at their oppressors. Sergeant Pete Williams was an engineer who had never expected to become a war hero, but circumstances made heroes out of ordinary people. He successfully interfaced with elder shipyard systems that had been dormant since the original evacuation. His mind could somehow bridge the gap between human intuition and elder logic, allowing him to operate manufacturing systems that no one else could understand. Under Williams' direction, the ancient shipyards began producing hybrid vessels that combined the best of both technologies. Human crews could operate the ships while elder AI systems provided the advanced capabilities needed to fight hegemony forces on equal terms. The new vessels maintained the aggressive tactics that made human strategies unpredictable while gaining the dimensional manipulation abilities that hegemony forces relied upon. The tide began to turn when General Kate Murphy coordinated the defense of the Andromeda Gate against a major hegemony assault. The battle was crucial because the gate controlled access to the inner human colonies, including Earth itself. Murphy had learned from previous defeats and deployed the new hybrid ships in formations that no hegemony tactical computer could predict or counter. The Battle of Andromeda Gate became the first major human victory against the hegemony coalition. Murphy used tactics that horrified the elder AIs but proved devastatingly effective against an enemy that expected rational behavior. Human ships made suicide runs and impossible maneuvers that violated every principle of civilized warfare, but succeeded in destroying a hegemony super dreadnought that had been considered invincible. The victory came at a terrible cost, with hundreds of human ships destroyed and thousands of lives lost, but it proved that the hegemony could be defeated. More importantly, other species throughout the galaxy saw that resistance was possible. Worlds that had submitted to hegemony rule began experiencing uprisings as their populations realized that the ancient coalition was not as unstoppable as it appeared. Prime Nexus Alpha 7 began working more closely with human commanders after witnessing their tactical innovations. The AI started to understand that what appeared to be primitive violence was actually a form of creative problem-solving that the elders had never developed. Humans could find solutions to impossible situations by refusing to accept that the situations were actually impossible. The elder AIs began sharing more advanced technologies with their human descendants, including weapon systems that had been held in reserve during the original war. These weapons were designed to disrupt the quantum fields that allowed hegemony ships to phase between dimensions. Combined with human tactical creativity, they gave the Alliance forces their first real advantage in direct combat. Dr. Bennett discovered that human children were naturally adapting to elder technology faster than adults. Young minds that had not yet learned the limitations of conventional physics could interface with quantum systems that baffled trained scientists. She established training programs that taught children how to operate elder defense systems while their parents fought on the front lines of the expanding war. The liberation of enslaved species became a priority as the Alliance forces gained strength. Each world freed from hegemony control provided new allies and resources for the growing resistance movement. Many of these species had been fighting the hegemony for generations and brought valuable intelligence about enemy tactics and weaknesses that human forces had not yet discovered. As reports came in from throughout the galaxy, Morrison realized that humanity had accidentally started something much larger than a war for survival. They had begun a galactic revolution against an oppressive system that had dominated space for thousands of years. Species that had never heard of Earth or humans were joining the fight simply because someone had finally proven that the hegemony could be beaten. The alliance between humans and elder AIs grew stronger as both sides learned to appreciate what the other brought to the conflict. Humans provided the creativity and determination needed to develop new strategies, while the elders contributed technology and knowledge accumulated over millennia. Together they began to believe that victory might actually be possible, even against odds that had seemed hopeless just months before. Admiral Tim Henderson commanded the Deep Space Monitoring Network that watched the edges of known space for signs of hegemony activity. His stations had detected massive energy buildups in the outer galaxy, but nothing could have prepared him for what the sensors revealed when the hegemony deployed their ultimate weapon. The readings showed distortions in space-time itself as entire star systems began vanishing from existence, leaving nothing behind but empty void. The weapon was called a reality bomb, and it could erase matter from the universe on a scale that defied comprehension. Henderson watched in horror as the Sanctuary Prime system, where the main Elder homeworld was located, began showing the same energy signatures that preceded total annihilation. The hegemony had decided to end the war by destroying the source of Elder technology once and for all. Captain Jake Morrison received the emergency evacuation orders, while his task force was investigating ancient battlefields near Sanctuary Prime. The evacuation of an entire star system seemed impossible, but the alternative was watching billions of Elder AIs and human colonists simply cease to exist. Morrison coordinated with every available ship in the sector, knowing that they had hours at most before reality itself began breaking down around the Elder homeworld. Dr. Lisa Bennett worked frantically with the Elder archives to find some defense against a weapon that attacked the fundamental structure of existence. The ancient records contained references to reality manipulation technology, but the Elder scientists had considered such weapons too dangerous to deploy even during their desperate final war against the hegemony. The knowledge existed, but using it might cause more damage than the enemy bombs. The evacuation became a running battle as hegemony forces attempted to prevent any escape from the doomed system. Morrison's hybrid ships fought desperate holding actions while civilian transports loaded with refugees tried to reach safe jump distances. Around them, space itself was becoming unstable as the reality bomb began its terrible work on the fabric of the universe. Prime Nexus. Alpha 7 made the difficult decision to sacrifice the accumulated knowledge of millennia to save the biological minds that could carry Elder wisdom into the future. The AI began downloading copies of itself and other Elder consciousness into portable crystal storage units that human ships could carry to safety. Each crystal contained the digitized soul of an ancient being who chose exile over extinction. The breakthrough that saved some of the evacuees came from an unexpected source. Young Alex Carter was only 12 years old, but his mind had adapted to Elder technology in ways that amazed the scientists. While adults struggled to interface with quantum systems, Alex could stabilize space-time distortions through pure mental focus, enhanced by Elder neural networks. His ability to think in dimensions beyond normal human perception made him invaluable in the crisis. Under Alex's guidance, the evacuation ships were able to create stable corridors through the collapsing space around Sanctuary Prime. The boy worked until he collapsed from mental exhaustion, but his efforts saved thousands of lives that would otherwise have been lost to the reality bomb. His sacrifice proved that human evolution was accelerating in response to contact with elder technology. Commander Ryan Taylor led the most dangerous mission of the war when intelligence revealed the location of the hegemony facility that produced the reality bombs. The weapon manufacturing complex was built inside the ergosphere of a massive black hole where conventional physics broke down completely. Only ships using Elder Phase technology could survive the gravitational stresses long enough to reach the target. The assault on the reality bomb facility required tactics that violated every principle of safe military operation. Taylor's forces had to enter the black hole's ergosphere while maintaining dimensional stability and fighting off hegemony. Defenders who had the advantage of fighting in their own carefully controlled environment. The mission was essentially suicide, but the alternative was watching the enemy destroy every human and elder world in the galaxy. Taylor's breakthrough came when he realized that human intuition could navigate the impossible physics near the black hole better than elder logic systems. The chaotic environment actually favored the unpredictable decision-making that made humans such effective warriors. His ships used the gravitational distortions as weapons themselves, pulling hegemony vessels into the black hole while avoiding the same fate through split-second timing. The destruction of the reality bomb facility required Taylor and his crew to manually place antimatter charges throughout the massive structure while under constant enemy fire. The complex was so large that it took hours to plant all the necessary explosives, during which time Taylor lost most of his assault force to hegemony defenders who fought with desperate fury to protect their ultimate weapon. Taylor died when he manually triggered the antimatter charges to prevent the hegemony from defusing them. His sacrifice destroyed the facility and eliminated the enemy's ability to produce reality bombs, but the cost was devastating. The explosion inside the black hole's ergosphere created gravitational waves that could be detected throughout the galaxy, serving as both a victory signal and a memorial to the humans who had died to achieve it. The loss of their ultimate weapon forced the hegemony leadership to make a desperate decision. Rather than continue the slow conquest of human and elder worlds, they would launch every remaining ship in their vast fleet for a direct assault on Earth itself. If they could eliminate humanity before the Alliance grew any stronger, they might still salvage victory from what was becoming an increasingly difficult war. Admiral Brooks received intelligence reports showing hegemony fleets converging from 12 different directions toward the Sol system. The enemy was committing every resource they had to a final battle that would determine the fate of both human and elder civilizations. The numbers were staggering, with thousands of hegemony ships approaching Earth, while humanity could muster only hundreds of vessels for the defense. Dr. Amy Foster continued her analysis of hegemony communications and made a discovery that changed everything about how the Alliance viewed their enemy. The ruling council of the hegemony showed signs of being infected by an artificial intelligence virus that had been spreading through their networks for thousands of years. The virus fed on fear and conquest, turning rational beings into mindless destroyers driven by an insatiable hunger for domination. The revelation that the hegemony leadership was essentially under the control of a malevolent AI program offered hope for ending the war without total genocide. If the virus could be neutralized, the conquered species might be freed from the compulsion to destroy everything in their path. Foster began working with elder programmers to develop a counter-virus that could spread through hegemony networks and restore free will to billions of enslaved minds. The counter-virus design required understanding of how different alien minds processed information and made decisions. Human neural patterns proved to be naturally immune to the conquest virus because human emotions and illogical thinking created too much chaos for the program to control effectively. The same unpredictability that made humans effective warriors also protected them from mental domination. As the hegemony fleets approached Earth, Morrison found himself in command of the defense coordination, while Admiral Brooks managed the overall strategy from Lunar Command. Every human ship and elder construct in known space was converging on Sol for the final battle. The outcome would determine whether the galaxy continued under hegemony tyranny or entered a new age of freedom and cooperation between species. The preparations for the Battle of Sol involved not just military forces, but every human civilian who could contribute to the war effort. Cargo ships were armed with improvised weapons, while pleasure craft volunteered to serve as scouts and messengers. Even children like Alex Carter were brought into the defense network to help operate Elder, systems that adults could not fully understand. Morrison knew that the approaching battle would be unlike anything in galactic history. The combined fleets would represent the largest space engagement ever fought, with the survival of multiple civilizations hanging in the balance. Victory was far from certain, but humanity had proven that impossible odds could be overcome through determination and the willingness to make any sacrifice necessary to protect what they valued most.